Welcome to Programming with Professor Califf. Today I want to explore dealing with decision making when we have more than two choices. We actually have two different ways to deal with these situations in Java. Today we're going to keep using if-else statements, which are the more flexible option. In a later video we will talk about switch statements, which we could use in place of if-else statements in certain circumstances. Our starting point for today's video is the fact that a selection statement, an if or if-else statement, is a Java statement. When we look at our if-else statement structure, we said that we could have any Java statements between the curly braces. That includes other if or if-else statements. As an example, let's imagine a game with the following scoring rules. In each round, we achieve some number of points on which our score will be based. If our points total is a multiple of 5, we'll score 5 points, unless the total is at least 20 and is a multiple of 10, in which case it will be 7. Otherwise, if the ones digit of our total is 1 to 4, we get 1 point, and if the ones digit is 6 to 9, we get 3 points. So let's write an if-else statement to figure out the score given the points total. So here I've set up a class with an empty main for us to write this in. So I am going to get the data from a user so that we can test different options. So we'll go ahead and import the scanner. And we'll create a scanner. Scanner input is assigned new scanner system.in. And we'll go ahead and print a prompt for the data. So keep it nice and short. Enter round total, points total. And we'll need an integer to store that in, so call it round points. And that will be input.nextInt. And then we need to compute the score. We'll start that just at 0. Now, we initially have this question, is our points total a multiple of 5 or not? So there's actually a very simple way that I can determine that, which is by using that mod or remainder operator. So if round points is a multiple of 5, then round points mod 5 is going to be equal to 0. Now, that gives me two possibilities, but I've got multiple possibilities within each of those. So if it is a multiple of 5, then I need to check to see if it is meets that other standard of being at least 20 and a multiple of 10. So I can do that just by putting in another if statement. So if round points is greater than or equal to 20, and round points, and here I've got a couple of options. I could say, well, I already know it's multiple of 5, so if it's also a multiple of 2, it's a multiple of 10. Or I can just go ahead and say if it's a multiple of 10, which will be round points mod 10 equals 0. I cannot find the right thing on my keyboard. Okay. In that case, we want our score to be 7, else our score will be 5. And then we have the other option. So that handles all the possibilities if we have a multiple of 5. So then I need to look at what that last digit is. And the way to get the digit is actually by using the same concept of mod 10. Because anything mod 10 will give you what the value of the ones digit of that number is. Think about it. So I'm going to say int digit is round points mod 10. Mod 10. And then I can just say if digit is less than 5, which actually covers all my possibilities, because if it were 0, then it would have already been handled in the other case. So I don't even have to worry about the is it exactly between 1 and 4. I just have to know it's less than 5. If it is, I guarantee it's between 1 and 4. So in that case, I want my score to be 1, else I want my score to be 3. Because if it wasn't a multiple of 5 and it's not in this case, then we know that that last digit has to be between 6 and 9. And this is our last option. So this would be an example of nesting ifs inside other ifs. Let me get that right. And let's see if we did it correctly. So let's try a few possibilities. Before we try possibilities, we should really print out the score so we can see what the result is. So system.out.println score plus score. So let's try running that and try different values. So if we put in 5, we get a score of 5, so that's good. And if we put in 15, we get a score of 5. Let's see what happens if we put in a score of 30. We get 7, so that's encouraging. Let's make sure it's not doing it all the time. So let's put in a score of 25. That's only 5 because it's not a multiple of 10, even though it's more than 20. When we're testing these if-else things, we do need to make sure that we test every single possible case, at least every branch. And we need to really think to make sure that we've hit all of the possibilities as we go. So let's do a couple more. I'm going to do a 21. Score is 1. Let's do a 17. Score is 3. So those are correct. So I encourage you, hopefully you followed along and have written this, I encourage you to play with different options and think about what all values you would want to have to make sure that your code works correctly. So most of the time when we have problems that we need to solve with multiple options, it's easier to think of them as just needing more branches in our if-else. We call those linear nested if-else statements, or sometimes just if-else if, because we do an if, then when we get to the else, we do another if. So the basic structure of these looks like this. If condition 1 will handle case 1, else if condition 2 will handle case 2, else if condition 3, we can handle case 3, and so on, until we get down to the final else that'll handle the final possibility. For this very last case, we almost always don't need a final if because all the other options will have been covered. One thing I want you to notice is that while we may treat this kind of nested if statement differently, we're still really just putting one if-else inside another. So this if-else statement that's shaded is in the else clause of the first if statement. And then this third if-else is just the statement inside the second else. Remember that if we just have one statement, we don't need the curly braces. And this is the one situation where we don't want to use them because it makes our code cleaner and easier to read if we leave them out. So let's look at an example where we might use a linear nested if. So here I have a company that gives bonuses based on production as follows. If someone produces 1,000 units or fewer, the bonus is $25. 1,001 to 3,000, the bonus is $50. 3,000 to 6,000, it's $100, and 6,001 and up, the bonus is $200. So let's write a program that gets the number of units produced and determines the bonus for the employee. Once again, I'm going to be reading. So import java.util.scanner. And then let's replace our stub comment with first a creation of our scanner object. So new scanner system.in. And then I'm going to read the production. So that's going to be, well, let's go ahead and ask first. System.out.println or print, enter production units. And then we're going to have the int production units is assigned input.nextInt. Then let's go ahead and set up the bonus amount is 0. And then let's take another glance quickly at our rules. So you do get a bonus no matter what. So up to 1,000, you're going to get 25. So if production units is less than or equal to 1,000, then our bonus amount is going to be 25. Else if, now here's a point I want to make. This is 1,001 to 3,000 units, but we've already covered everything below 1,001 because we can never ever get to this statement right here if production units was less than or equal to 1,000. So all we need to do here is to say if production units is less than or equal to 3,000, in which case our bonus amount was 50. And then with this next one, again, we cannot get here if the production amount is less than 3,001. So all we care about here is the upper bound of 6,000 units for the $100 bonus. So bonus amount then is 100. And then in this final case, we actually don't need an if at all because we cannot get here unless the production units are at least 6,001. So now let's go ahead and print the bonus is, and since it's just an integer, we know it will print nicely no matter what. So we won't worry about using decimal format or anything like that. We'll just print. Okay. And for some reason I put 200 instead of bonus amount. Okay, that looks better. Now let's test this one. So let's try some different values. One thing we always want to make sure we do is to try values that are on boundaries. So I want to make sure that if it's 1,000, we get the $25 bonus. And that if it's instead 1,001, we get the $50 bonus. So this is how we can go through and create an if statement by using ifs and else's, by using the if-else inside our other if-else statements to handle as many options as we need to handle. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we'll talk about how we compare strings and other objects, since we can't use the relational operators to do that.